All right, so thank you all for able to attend in person. Also, thank you for those who are viewing from home. So we're streaming also on our district YouTube channel. So it'll also be recorded and uploaded on there too if you'd like to reference anything from the presentation. So I'm Anthony Arcaro. I'm the 6 to 12 Supervisor of Special Education for the district. In the back there is Mr. Flaum. He's the K to 5 Supervisor of Special Education for the district. And we'd like to welcome you thank you for coming to our presentation on post-secondary transition planning. So tonight we have our presenters are Jeslis Perez, who is a vocational rehabilitation counselor from the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services, and also our district transition coordinator, Erica Friedman, who will also be sharing information with you. So please, there'll be information presented. If you have any questions, we just may ask that you let them present first and then just hold your questions till the end and be happy to answer any questions that you have. Without further ado, Ms. Perez.
Okay, so as just mentioned, my name is Jeslis. I am a vocational rehabilitation counselor with DVR, which is the Division of Vocational Rehabilitation Services under the Department of Labor. So our division basically helps individuals with disabilities to obtain and maintain employment, right? Under the Department of Labor, employment. New Jersey is an employment first state. So our primary mission, our first goal is employment. However, we also help high school students with their employment journey or their transition journey to employment. So what that means is that I, myself, am assigned to work with your school. So any student in this school that has a disability, IEP, 504 plan, they get referred to us for services, transition services. And we help them with 5 core transition services, and those are called pre-AT services, which basically just means pre-eligible, right? They're pre-eligible, pre-ATs, pre-employment, and they're 5 core services. There's a pamphlet in the blue folder, and it'll tell you what those 5 core services are. So it's this pamphlet, From School to Work. Right under core services, it'll explain what those services are that we can actually provide to any student that's referred to us. So there are things like job exploration counseling. So if a student comes to us and says, I'm not quite sure what I want to do after high school. I don't know what kind of job I want. I don't know where my career path is. I just don't know. So job exploration counseling might be perfect for them. There are paper assessments, inventory assessments. What we do is we have job coaches or evaluators that come out and meet with the students and do this with them. We meet with them, give them assessments, have conversations, counseling, and kind of help them through that process of what am I good at, where are my interests, and how can I make that my career path, right? So job exploration counseling is normally the most common one that we start off with for high school students that come to DVR. Then there's work-based learning experiences. So work-based learning experiences is more of a hands-on approach. It's the job sampling, the internships, going out into the community and getting that experience. That normally comes, for most students, it comes after the job exploration counseling. Not necessarily, but it normally does. Once they figured out what they want to do, then they go out with their job coach and try to find sites in the community. The most important thing about work-based learning experiences is that it's out in the community. DVR focuses on competitive, integrated employment. What that means is that when we're helping our clients find employment, they're out in the community with individuals who may or may not have a disability, right? So they're entitled to the same pay rate as their counterpart who's doing the same job with the same job title. They're entitled to benefits, right? Because what we're saying is this person can do this job, so they're entitled to the same thing everyone else is doing under this job title. So being out in the community during work-based learning experience is important. We want them to actually be in a place that they would be if that was their job, right? So work-based learning experience is, again, the internship, the job sampling, those types of things. Counseling on opportunities for enrollment in post-secondary education programs. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory, but that's what a lot of guidance counselors would have done or do still. Are you interested in going to college or vocational training or certificate programs? Yes, okay, well, what would you be interested in studying? Have you applied to these schools? Do you know what it would be, like what would be your first semester or your first day? Have you applied to FAFSA? So everything that comes along with not just college, but vocational training. Where is the school? How much is it? Have you spoken to your parents? How much are your parents gonna be able to pay for this if FAFSA does not do it, right? And then the same thing would go like if they were interested in DVR assisting. Here's the process that DVR can do to help you through the process. So DVR does assist with college sponsorship. It's a service that DVR does. It can be complicated to discuss college sponsorship because there's so many little steps involved to college sponsorship. So everything I just explained about what's the school, how much does it cost, when are you starting, what are you studying once you get there. That's all information that we want to know too. So that's why during counseling of opportunities for secondary post-secondary enrollment, that's why it goes through all of those steps, because we want to know that information. If we're going to tell you, you are eligible for DVR sponsorship, that's the information we would want to know, right? Financial participation is also very important when we're talking about sponsorship for vocational schools or college sponsorship. Financial participation basically means DVR has no cost services and then cost services. Cost services are things like furthering your education, vocational training, college, assistive technology, that would be cost services. Assistive technology would be things like hearing aids. Those types of things would be cost services. And financial participation means anyone under the age of 22 who is still living with a parent or a guardian, we would need to have those financial records from them. The parent or the guardian would be them, in order to assess if you can financially participate in that plan. DVR would be the last dollar spent when it comes to cost services, okay? Workplace readiness training. So workplace readiness training is preparing for employment. It's the application, the interviewing, do I have the interpersonal skills? All of that involved with being prepared for employment would be under workplace readiness training. And that again will come through someone that we call a job coach or an evaluator that would come and help the student learn this through inventory assessments or worksheets or counseling, whatever it may be. A lot of the services can be done in a group or individually. Most common is individually. The job coach will meet one-on-one with the student, figure out where their interests are, what their abilities are, what their limitations are, right? And then take it from there. They come up with a plan, and then they develop a schedule. All of this is also done with the assistance of the school. So we collaborate. Before the job coach comes to meet someone, let's say here at the school, it doesn't have to be at the school, but a lot of times for the student and the family, it's a lot easier for them to meet at the school. So in order for that to happen, we collaborate with the school. When does the student have a free period so that the job coach can come in and actually meet with them and get the services done? When is school over, right? So that they can decide where they're going to meet during the summer months if they can't meet at the school campus. So all of this is done in collaboration with the school. And then instruction and self-advocacy. That's teaching them, the student, about their disability, their rights and responsibilities. Self-advocacy, so when they get a job, saying things like, these are the accommodations I need in order to perform my task at this employment. Or just saying, I don't feel well, I gotta go home. I need to use my time, I need to go home. So all of those things would be under self-advocacy. And again, they're all listed here in this pamphlet for you. These services don't go in any order. It's pretty much a conversation between the student, the family, and the counselor as to what is the school offering you, what do you still need, and how can DVR help you or support you. So DVR is meant to complement what the school is already doing. It's not meant to replace it. So for example, if the school is already offering job exploration counseling, that the student can also benefit from counseling of opportunities for enrollment in post-secondary. So that's where DVR can step in, right? So we work together. We don't replace what the school is doing, no double dipping in a way, but we definitely can provide the other services if there is a need for the student to have any one of the other services. That is for pre-employment services, what we call pre-at services. There also is just DVR vocational services, which we provide to our students. So pre-employment services, pre-at services would be for students still in high school. We can provide the same services to students outside of high school. 14 to 21 would be for pre-ats. Outside of high school, I believe, is 16 and 24, if I'm not mistaken. We can provide out of school so pre-at services to that population. Now let's say the student now graduates high school and is working with DVR, their case gets transferred from pre-at services over to VR adult services. So it just basically means that now we can provide more than just the 5 core services. We can provide, supported employment, long-term follow-along. We can provide assistive technology that may be needed. We can provide placement, counseling and guidance. So there's just more that we can provide if needed to make sure that our client is employed and maintains employment long-term. Career pathways is really the goal, so it's not just, let's just get you a job and say, have a nice life. It's really, how can we help you do this so you can maintain this, obtain the skills necessary to also self-advocate for yourself. You've been doing this job for a while, it's great, you love it, but now you can do more, and you want a promotion, or you want more hours, or you want more pay. So the whole point is to teach our clients to be able to do this. The employment part of their lives, the transition, and then keeping and maintaining that employment. That's really our mission when we have clients over at DVR. So, any questions for me? Sure.
I didn't quite understand, outside of high school versus adult services, so does it stop at 24 or the adult services go throughout their adult life?
Yeah, so, okay, so our services start at 14. The prerequisite for pre-ats or for pre-at services would be that the student, a student with a disability, hope that makes it clear, a student with a disability. Now, we also do transitional services out of school youth, which could be someone the age of 16, but they dropped out of high school. But they still need these services. So we will still provide it to them even if they're not in school. It's just the name of the service is different. So in high school would be pre-ats. They're not in high school, they dropped out, whatever the case might be. Now it's out of school youth. But we start our services as early as 14.
And continue until?
It continues until they no longer need us. So we are supposed to be on a fadeaway system. Again, we're trying to teach them to do it on their own. But that doesn't mean we just walk away. We continue until it's mutually understood they no longer need us. So if the client's like, yeah, leave me alone, then we're like, okay, fine, we can do this, right? But we don't just drop the student or the client or services.
And is there a cost for the service?
No. So the only time they would be, the only time we would request that we get any financial documents would be if you're requesting a cost service. So if you, meaning the client, if you're requesting that we assist with assistive technology or sponsorship with assistive technology like hearing aids, then we would ask for financial documents, because that is a cost service in which it's required for the client, if the client can, to financially participate. That's the reason why we ask the financial documents. There's a guideline, right? A family of 4 can't make over a certain amount of money yearly. If they do, then they're over our cost guidelines, which means, right, now you're making too much money, now we have to discuss other things. But cost services like assisted tech, like hearing aids, and furthering education like vocational programs and college, those would be some of the only reasons why we would ask for financial documents. Mm-hmm.
And once they turn 22?
Yeah, so it's 22 and under.
Okay.
If they're 22, then I believe those are the same rules for the FAFSA application when someone is applying for financial aid for college. I believe it's 22 and under, then parents' information. But once they're over 22, then it's just the client's financial information. Mm-hmm. Any other questions for me? There are numbers on the back, the same pamphlet, from school to work. It says DVR offices. So there's a DVR office in every county. And the addresses and the phone numbers are on here. You can call, you can email and ask questions. Normally for pre-ETs, the school will refer the student, but reality is that anyone can refer anyone to DVR. It doesn't have to be a school. It can be a parent, an advocate, anyone can refer someone to DVR. And in that pamphlet, there's also referral forms. There's also referral forms online. If you were interested in having your child or anyone you know apply for DVR. Any other questions for me?
Okay. Thank you. So one thing I just wanted to add, because this does come up with DVRS, it is funded by the Department of Labor, and if you're not staying in New Jersey for the rest of your life, and you have a student, a child, an adult child with a disability, and you move to another state and you have to find a job, it might not be called DVRS in another state, but there is the equivalent funding through the Department of Labor in every state. Is that correct?
Yes. So there is, because we're under the Department of Labor, as Erica mentioned, every state has a department that does vocational rehabilitation services. But Erica's right, they're not all called DVR, and they're not all under the Department of Labor. In some states, they're under the Department of Education, but nonetheless, whatever department they're under, they have vocational rehabilitation services for individuals with disabilities.
Okay. I don't know if you needed to stay or if you wanted to stay, but maybe leave a few of your cards. Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much. Any further questions before I continue? Okay. So in order to achieve an employment outcome, okay, we're an employment first state, it should be consistent with a child's individual needs, their strengths, their preferences, their interests, and in order to do that, sometimes they need further education to get to their end goal. So tonight, I'm actually going to speak about post-secondary options in education, predominantly in our county and surrounding county colleges, as well as the adult vocational programs. There are 3 area community colleges. So Middlesex obviously is our community college. Brookdale, we often have students go to, which is in Monmouth County. And then we also have Mercer County Community College, which is right down Old Trenton Road. Oftentimes, people will ask me, well, which one should I go to? Well, it often depends on where you live. Monroe is a very big township, and we're very spread out. For some, if the student that is graduating is able to drive themselves, going to Old down Old Trenton Road might be an easier drive, and a lot of our students will go there. Or going to Brookdale is also straight down 520, and it's an easier drive. Going to Edison, Middlesex County College, you certainly don't want to go for a first early morning class because there's a lot of traffic. So I'm going to address programs in all of the 3 area colleges as well as the adult vocational. So at the county colleges, you have multiple types of programs. You have associate degree programs, you have certificate programs, and certificate of achievement programs. Those are the 3 I'm going to talk about first, because those are accredited programs. That means whatever program you go into, the associate degree, you come out with a 2-year degree, and it's usually about 60 to 65 credits. So you're not only taking something you're interested in, you're taking 30 elective credits. And in order to do that, you have to have the proper skill sets to pass those courses. A certificate program is typically half of that, about 30 to 35 credits, but it's more career-based. So an example of a certificate program, and the orange paper that I did leave does have all the links to that. And I should have mentioned, after tonight, everything will be posted on the SEPAG website under transition documents. So it will be easy to go into any one of the links to explore them. So it's the orange paper that I'm referring to with some of the examples. The certificate, so an example of a certificate program that might be 30 to 35 credits could be culinary arts, okay? What happens with that, if you take 30 to 35 credits in culinary arts and you come out with a certificate and you did great, your child did great and they want to continue, then they could continue to an associate degree because it's all accredited coursework towards that degree. A certificate of achievement in that same area might be baking and pastry arts. That's only about 18 credits. And everything that they do is pretty much hands-on, working towards whether you want to work in, a high-end hotel that's baking all their pastries and things, or you want to work in a supermarket like Stop and Shop or Wegmans in the bakery department. You're learning cake decorating. You are learning proper food handling in both programs, but it's much shorter and it gets you to work sooner if you want to go into that field. This colleges also, so those are associate, certificate, and the certificate of achievement, and each one requires less credit, but it is totally accredited. Colleges also offer something called professional certificates. These are not accredited. So an example of a professional certificate at any one of the community colleges might be, I'll go along with the culinary, serve safe. Every single cafeteria, every single restaurant, any place that is serving food has to always have someone in their kitchen with a serve safe certificate. And it's only 7 hours, not all in one day, 7 hours of learning proper food safety, food sanitation, knowing how to mark and date. We have students that job sample in our cafeteria here, and they have to know when they do that, that they are marking the tray with the date they did it, and if there was another tray with other items similar, they have to take the older one first, and they have to learn how many days that type of food can be refrigerated. So in our high school cafeteria, there is always someone with a serve safe certificate. However, when you finish the 7 hours, it is tied to a national restaurant food safety test. But if you do well in the coursework all along all the little steps, A lot of our students have been able to achieve that. Another example of a professional certificate, they're either linked to a test at the end, or maybe an externship or an internship in the field. So another one, like in healthcare, would be phlebotomy. There's only 2 classes in phlebotomy, that's drawing blood, but you have to do 126 hours in they call it externship on the college site. And if you're not doing it effectively, you're not going to go into that field. Let me see, I wrote a lot of different examples. Another example of a professional certificate that I've had students do is personal trainer. They love sports, they love exercising, they go to the gym every day. They come out with a professional certificate. It's also tied to a test, but they can be a trainer in a gym or to have private clients once they pass that. Another one is real estate. These are professional certificates. So those are also the types of things offered at a college. The other thing that's offered at all 3 community colleges is either what they call non-credit or lifelong learning programs. So something like that, if someone is very creative and artistic, they might end up taking floral design. And there's different levels of floral design, and they could work in a nursery or they could work in a floral shop. That's an example of lifelong learning. You could take the classes as you want. You could take it, some parents say, oh, could I go to that with my child? They don't drive, could I take them? Absolutely. But it's engagement in the community. They're learning. They are learning skill sets, and they might actually have an outcome of employment in that field. The adult vocational programs in the county. So Middlesex County now, the Middlesex County Vocational and Technical Schools has a brand new name and a brand new website. At first I was like, why isn't this coming up? It's called Middlesex County Magnet Schools. The closest one to Monroe is East Brunswick. There's another one in Piscataway. There's also in Perth Amboy and Woodbridge. Typically, our students from Monroe will go to East Brunswick or Piscataway. The full-time programs that they offer, adult programs, so they have high school programs as well. But the adult programs that they offer are HVAC, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. They offer electrical technology, electrician. They offer plumbing as a full-time. And they also offer cosmetology. The full program is hair, makeup, skincare. It's also tied to hours as well as a test. And they have practical nursing. Those are the full-time programs. But they also have evening school. Why do they have evening school? A lot of students do best by learning on the job. And they have an apprenticeship where they work during the day, whether it's in carpentry, in automotive, in auto collision, in auto detailing, welding. These are evening programs that they offer so that when you're working during the day, I always use the example, my nephew, he was not going to go to college. He wasn't going to be able to get a degree like his siblings. He really struggled all through school, but he was great with his hands. And he's now journeyman status as a plumber. He always comes and he will tell anyone, I never thought school would be so easy. Because learning, doing it all day, when he goes to school at night and he had to do all the certs, he was able to easily take the test because he envisioned everything he did with his hands during the day. And at night when he did that, he never had that all through school. School was a struggle. So you have to really tap into whether it is an educational outcome you're looking for, or the employment outcome, and ultimately you want your child to be as independent as possible, economically self-sufficient, where they feel good about themselves, they have their own earning power. And in order to do that, to set those realistic goals, you have to really tap into where they are at, not what you think they should do. So when I meet with students and we talk, and every year we revisit, what are the things you enjoy, whether it's at home or at school? What are the things that are important to you? What is your dream? How will you get to that end goal? We talk about those things, and it does change through the grades. And eventually, there are many options, not just while we're in school learning, but to then try those things in the community. And we see a lot of success here at Monroe. Let me just see where I'm at. Okay, the other thing that I did put down, because when I'm asked to speak, and I thank you for having me back, I've spoken to SEPAG so many times through the years. I put a flyer that's in purple and one in yellow. These are structured 4-year programs that support the one that's yellow, and these will be posted on the website for people that are listening online. The one in yellow, those are programs that support students with high-functioning autism spectrum disorder. And for the purple, those are structured programs for learning disabilities, people with specific learning disabilities. So I did include that, and it may or may not apply to your child, but I did include that. Okay. Just trying to see. Okay. So when we talk, and this is what I do with students, when we talk about options after high school, there are many options after high school. And it can be the 2-year school, it could be the 4-year school, it could be a career school, it can be a technical school, it can be half on-the-job training and then school at night. It could be a true apprenticeship where you learn everything through on-the-job training. Some kids go right to employment. Living here in Monroe, if they have the ability, if you drive around and you see in Cranberry, in Dayton, in Jamesburg, we have a lot of industrial parks in this area. And right now, a lot of these places, especially for graduating seniors, I get calls every year, send me students that want to learn, that have a good work ethic. They want to work, they're responsible, send them our way. And they will train them on the job. We've had kids go for machinist, all different technical careers. And a lot of these companies, when you drive around, you will see big signs posted. They're not just for truck drivers or someone with a CDL license. They are looking for people that really want to learn and work up their way up the career ladder. And then we do have some that go the military route. And then there are some that, and this she did not say, but DVRS will work with students to a point. They will job coach to a point. But if they're not getting that employment outcome, then the student might end up going to a day program with supported employment or work opportunities within the program. So it's a different option depending on the individual. And the other conversations that I have with students, a lot of students will say they love animals. I want to be a veterinarian. They don't even know what it takes to be a veterinarian. So what I do is, I don't want to squash a dream of saying, well, there's no way, or, you know, it's X amount of years of school and it costs a lot of money. I show them the career ladder. So an example of a student that wants to work with animals, The pet stores have training programs. You go onto Petco and PetSmart. If you want to be a groomer, a stylist with animals, or you want to work with the animals every day, they have all different training programs. They want people that love animals to do that. So there's just lots of different options. And it really depends on, you have to take the steps to get there. It really depends on the individual person and meeting them where they're at. I don't know. Are there any questions? I know a lot of these, I put the links because everyone has different interests. So I wanted to make sure that I put every possible type of link that you can go to, and once it's posted, you won't have to type these in. You'll be able to just go right to them. The other handout, I know that she gave you flyers, but it also includes other areas, important numbers down the bottom. If your child has a developmental disability, the Family Support Center, the SPAN is the statewide parent advocacy network. So there's a lot of key numbers there, and it does have our DVRS office first. Okay? Questions for me? Yes?
I have a few. How closely do we work with the local colleges with supporting our students?
Okay. Now, I'm glad you asked that question. I should have
Well,
mentioned that.
I'll tell you why I should. Middlesex County is no longer Middlesex County, it's Middlesex College. They're
Right.
going to a 4-year. And from what my understanding is, the past few years, their project connections have not really supported students, and they're actually.
They don't have project connections
Yeah, they've
anymore.
done away with the
So
program.
basically, I should have spoken about that. If a student is going to go to college, every student, there are no IEPs in college at all. However, if you had an IEP, your exit IEP, and your parent testing, educational cognitive testing, if there's a communication problem, speech evaluation, your parent testing can give you reasonable accommodations in college. It shifts from you are entitled through the IEP under IDEA, Individual Disability Education Act, and it shifts to ADA, American Disability Act 504, that you no longer are entitled, but you can show eligibility. Showing eligibility, no one is mandated to read a document. You go to the student support office at the college, and they sit down and they will grant reasonable accommodations. Once that happens, it's still up to the individual student. It is confidential information. There is not one professor that will know unless they speak up. So I always tell students, whether they go to community college, four-year college, certificate program, whatever they do, they are their own self-advocate. They have to speak up and assert themselves. The professors, the teachers, depending on where they're going, set office hours, or they have on the website, the best way to reach me is by email. It's a good rule of thumb at the beginning of the semester, every semester, that you go and meet them. And you're saying, I may or I may not need these reasonable accommodations I was granted, but if I do, how far in advance, if I need a quiet setting to take a test, how far in advance do I need to tell you to put in the testing center? If I need extended time, do you want me to sit in the classroom and take it and then stay there with me if I need extended time, or should I be taking it in the testing center? So that is a big piece that I talk to juniors and seniors about that are on track to go to college. And it's really important. I get calls constantly from parents, oh, I need copies of. Once you leave Monroe Township School District, everything is archived at the Pupil Personnel Services. If your child acts on their own behalf, you're not a guardian, they have to come and sign for those documents with proof of who they are, either through a non-driver's license ID or a driver's license. So I try to prepare as best as possible, but they really have to learn to take charge. And I spend a lot of time teaching students that. I work with students individually. I wrote the curriculum for transition to post-secondary options. I updated the curriculum to transition to post-secondary options. There's units on self-advocacy, units on self-management, units on pre-work readiness skills, employment skills, decision-making skills, money management skills, interviewing, resume writing, cover letter writing. So all of these are available to your child if they're able to, understand it, and it's an appropriate course for them. Yeah.
I have more questions. And this seems to focus a lot on students that are less impacted by their disability. What about the students that are either moderately or severely impacted? What are we offering them? How are we transitioning them? I know we have our TAPS program here. Could you speak a little bit about how we support all of our students? Because this seems to be focused on supporting, again, students that are less impacted by their disability than somebody who might be moderately or severely impacted.
A lot of the certificate programs and the adult vocational programs are students that are pretty, I would say, mild cognitive impairment, borderline, have gone to these programs. It really depends on the individual. And there are so many programs out there. I just took the ones in the county area that are easy to get to, and those, I was asked to speak about some college programming. Are there any other questions? Just had a lot of points here, but the area of transition is huge, and it's different for everyone. And, basically, you have to take into account, as a parent having 3 children, you have certain wants and things for your child, but you have to take into account what they want for themselves too. And sometimes it's a different agenda. And, yes?
What is the definition of high function? Because I appreciate it in high function, but he's in the middle.
Okay, well, those programs that I put down, Ramapo and those, the students, and we've had many students go to these programs, they are students that typically have the academic ability to achieve a 4-year program at a college level, but they don't always have the soft skills and the social skills, or don't easily make friends or speak up on their own behalf. And those programs at Ramapo and at Fairleigh Dickinson and Rutgers and TCNJ, there's even at Rowan, it's getting better, a program, but if you're part of that program, then you have a bigger support group within the program, like the Lions program or the Compass program. So, if they're on a college prep track in high school, then those programs would definitely be appropriate. Are there any other questions? I mean, I guess to just kind of summarize and sum things up, when I speak with students, I try to be as realistic as possible. I want to see what is achievable. Going back to those interests, strengths, and preferences, you have to take aptitude and experience and real-life application into account. You have to look at, if they want to work, the requirements of the job. Every job has a job requirement. If they want to be in a job in stocking and they cannot lift 50 pounds, they shouldn't be in that job. That's going to be asked of them. And then we also talk about vocation and avocation. So vocation is the job, your bread and butter, that gives you your money to pay your bills. But avocation is what you enjoy, maybe your hobbies in your free time, what's fun to you. So you have to look at that too, and everyone needs a little bit of both, obviously. Are there any other questions? I appreciate you having me back. I have spoken on so many different things. I know every student is an individual, and that's why I asked you to sign in. If there are any questions you have specifically, and you put your email down, I left my cards out, feel free to contact me. And for everyone watching on our YouTube channel, that's the same. My contact information will be put up there.
So, Mrs. Friedman, in this inventory that you're doing with the students, how is that communicated back to parents? And how are you then taking that information and tailoring that to whatever you're doing with the students?
Okay. Well, we start out freshman and sophomore year. Every year we revisit one sheet that I put together. And every year I change the color pen, because from freshman year, and there are some kids that I've known for 7 or 8 years here. And it does change from year to year, so that's why I love changing the color pen. And certainly with maturity and growth, they change and they focus differently on what they want to do. As far as inventories you mentioned, we do multiple inventories. We start out with the quickest inventory that the district actually pays for, is something called career cruising. It basically asks the student 39 questions. There's over 400 classified students. I don't meet with all of them. Freshman and sophomore year, there's been someone else that has met with them through the years, and then I usually meet with students junior, senior, and beyond that. So the career cruising inventory is a really quick read. And when I do it with students, if I'm not the first person to do it with them, I say, try to be as honest as possible when you answer. And it's, how would you like a career working with children? And the responses are, dislike very much, dislike, doesn't matter, like, and like very much. So, and what it does when it's all done, and again, sometimes I revisit that and do it later, because their thought process has totally changed from when they were a freshman or sophomore. And oftentimes, it comes up with, those 39 questions come up with 40 careers. Well, obviously, they're not going to do 40 careers, but based on their responses. And it also puts them into career clusters. So one cluster is architecture and construction. Another might be education, human services, healthcare related fields. There's 16 career clusters. And oftentimes, even from that, if we have the time, where we revisit it, and they should be able to do this in a transition class, because when I taught, we spent a lot of time on this. What happens is, what I like about the site is, for every career that comes up, it gives 10 related careers. And for every career that's in the site, it gives a job description and what it takes to get to that career, educational programs they need. There's an interview, sometimes a video interview, or an interview you read with a person that actually does that job. And it really does get them to see different possibilities. And I know a lot of the special education teachers that do the transition class or a vocational light class, a practical arts class, they do spend time on this. And it's just, it really is dependent on the student, you know, which route you go as far as that. Did I answer your question?
Parents get that information.
Well, the parents get the information. If I'm at an IEP, I'm usually, I like listening to the feedback, and I'm usually there the longest because I like listening and then speaking based on if it's a reevaluation IEP meeting and they're going over evaluations and I'm hearing, okay, those are standardized tests, but a lot of those strengths that come out in different areas also come out just in seeing them work and do things. So it's mostly reported out in an annual meeting, most of the things.
So to put a finer point on it, how do I get my child's reports? Because if you can see it, I should be able to see it. So how do I get that?
A lot of transition assessments are informal assessments. I have a file. I mean, if you want to see.
But if you're going through this career cruise program.
Oh,
right?
I have all that.
So I imagine there's some sort of output, right? If the
There's
child
a
answers
list that
39
comes out.
questions.
I could share that.
Great.
But I
Okay.
think we have to proactively share that, because if we're talking about the future of all of our students, and I'm going to direct this to our supervisors, that's a really important piece. We're sitting here talking about transition and planning their lives. We seem to be only focused on those that could go to 2 or 4 year colleges that might be mildly impacted. We're not focusing on those that are moderately or severely impacted. We can even start to discuss what are we doing with our out-of-district students, which are still our students. And then we're collecting all this data that is not shared with the parents, most of whom may probably have guardianship. So do we see that we're missing something major here that is going to affect the outcome of these students' lives to become, I think the other woman that spoke here said, competitive, integrated employment and post-secondary goals. So parents aren't involved, not as a request, but kind of like as a norm. There's a big gap here. I'm not trying to be negative, but this is our children's lives. So as a district, we have got to do better.
Well, actually, I can speak to one thing for sure. We have been in 100% compliance on all transition indicators since I've been in this position, and I have had to, a year after a student exits out of the district, and we're due again this year, I've done it, this will be the 5th time that it's coming up. A year after graduation, it's a post-outcome survey that is now actually electronic that we have to input, and it's been me, but we have to input on all transition indicators based on when a child has exited. It goes in anonymous by a number. So there's no names involved. But I've done it 4 times, this will be the 5th time, 100% compliance. We were one of the only districts, and I know this because I participate in a statewide network for New Jersey transition coordinators, and every year, the head of Office of Special Education that I have done has come over to me, and they said there wasn't even a handful. And your district has consistently hit every point. And it was for every child that exited. And I'm really proud of that.
And you should be, and I applaud you for that. But with all due respect, there's compliance and there's what's best for these students and their outcomes. And if we're not sharing information with parents, because I see 2 parents here whose children are about to exit, that's a problem. We can sit here and then say we're compliant, and that's great. And we have to be compliant, and that's the law, and I know I'm very well aware of the law. But I think there's 2 different areas. And I feel like just being compliant is actually not providing an appropriate education for all of our students. So I have some concerns, and I've been very vocal about our concerns. So we have improvements to make here, and I think we have to focus on all 400, 600, 800, however many classified students there are, and share that information with parents that need to know this information. And yes, a parent also has to take a proactive, and I believe most of us here are proactive, and kind of request things, but I think as a norm, if we're taking these surveys, if we're getting this information, we have to share it with the parent.
Well, the parents also need to know that you're actually meeting with you. Because I just know as a child, you know, how was your day, kind of thing. Like, we should know beforehand that our child is meeting with the transition coordinator and they're talking about that. I don't think that happens, correct? I think that's important, so then you can, you know, talk to your child after that or be involved that way. Just a thought.
Okay.
And let me ask a question, what happens with students that cannot have that conversation with you, again, because they're impacted moderately,
We have a lot of
severely?
students that are nonverbal.
I don't mean nonverbal, I just mean that may not be able to express exactly the information that you're looking for. Then are we reaching out to parents to get that information? Because you said they watch
Certainly,
videos and they do surveys.
I mean, every single year, and again, you're not tied down to one annual IEP meeting, but at an annual IEP meeting, the case manager is asking for parent concerns. Your input is definitely, any parent's input is welcome because we are a team. And I also, there are parents here that have spoken very vocally to me and can tell me things that I wasn't able to tap into, and I have set up programming for their child. So you know, my door's always open. I think that I'm pretty proud of what we do. I think we have excellent programming here. So.
And we hear what you're saying. And I think that the idea of when we speak to students about transition, that's something that we can, moving forward, we can look into and we can start collaborating and making that part of those meetings, especially within their junior and senior year. We could look into a few of those things that you were discussing. I don't think that's out of the realm at all. I completely understand what you're saying, and that's something that we can definitely.
And I think with the growing, I mean, obviously we're growing all over, but with the growing special education students, we're growing overall, but our special education programs are growing. Perhaps we need to expand our transition department, so
Well,
to speak, right?
Right, and as we
Because
discussed.
400 students,
Right, and as we,
plus
right,
a
and
lot
that's
of
something that we
students,
are, that is something that we are currently working on, having working on, and that, like again, like I said, you know, those things take time, but that is something that we are looking at expanding, we are expanding. But we are not there, where you were saying, and that is something that we will definitely.
and can either of you speak a little bit about, I know this is transition, but it's almost part of it, a little bit about our TAPS program and what we're focused on and what we're offering, and
Yeah, so there's a number of things with our TAPS program. So, and again, talking about the TAPS program, it's our transitioning adult program. So we're looking at 18 to 21 year olds, and the focus is really based on developing those functional skills and being able to prepare those adult students for whatever level of independence that they can achieve, again, individually. So what that will include, it includes focus on communication skills, it includes work-based learning. So 3 days a week, they're out in the community, and we have programs that also include task analysis. So it's specific to each work-based learning location, as well as the tasks that are going on there. So it really is in preparation to transition to adulthood and still getting the supports while being in the school system itself. So again, there's a lot of emphasis on communication, social skills, on, what's that? Yes, self-advocacy for sure. We work with a number of programs even within the township to practice interview skills, to develop resumes, to have all these types of skills in more of a controlled environment before getting out into the public, where they're more independent.
And when they're doing job sampling, whether it's on campus, in the district, or outside of the district, they have a para that's job coach trained.
Yes, so those have received training through Box, and there's task analysis with each of those. Whatever they're working on that day, there's a task analysis. So there's data that's collected with each of those tasks that they're performing at that specific job location. So it's not just kind of going out there and just, oh, okay, guys, just do whatever. We want to be able to measure the progress that's being made, identify if there's areas that need to be focused on more, and continue to grow on the skills, or continue to expand past the skills that they're already mastering.
And that's part of their IEP goals, I assume?
That should be, yeah, that's part of it. Yeah, that's what it's driven by.
Specifically?
I'm sorry?
Specifically, part of their IEP goals?
Is it specifically part of their IEP goals?
Or in general, that they're going to be exposed to and taken out to,
It's not so much that, go ahead.
So them going out to a workplace is the program in which they are. The goals in the IEP are the STEM accuracy skills, the task skills that they need to develop. Those are the types of things that go into the IEP, the goals of the IEP. What you're speaking of, the work piece, that's their program. So if they were younger, it would be their reading program, the reading section. So that's what that is.
right, but if you're in the 18 to 21-year-old program, how are those goals specific? In other words,
How are they focused on each individual child?
And how are they individual, yeah, how
So-
are they individual?
So within the TAPS program, they do inventories, and they work with the students. They have a lot of conversations with them besides the inventories, find out what their likes and what their desires are, and that's where that part is developed.
Use of AFOLs, even some peak student assessments also. So those are all data that's collected to determine what the individualized goals are going to be for.
And that's what the goals are based on, those inventories. And so the AFOLs or peak, those are assessments, those are functional living assessments.
But the class goes on mass.
Goes on what?
The
They go
class
to multiple
travels
sites.
No, they don't.
travels
No, they
together.
don't. No, they don't. There's multiple kids that will go to one place, but they go to, they are split up into multiple occupations.
And even within those locations, whatever that site too, it's more individualized what their tasks are within that site also. So not everyone is working on the same task. It's individualized to that piece also.
Is that similar to what they offer in the program?
Is it similar? It is, there's things that are similar about it. So, your DVRS. So our TAPS program is focused on more general functional life skills. It's not job specific, okay? It's life specific. So to generalize, you want to generalize through multiple jobs, like that's what we do in school. It's not about, we're not training you to be a doctor or to be a baker, we're training you to be a productive citizen. So it's experiential. Where DVRS, when you hit that 18 point, 21 point, and it turns into something else, but they're going to be more focused on a specific direction of a job. So whether you're working in a supermarket or in an office, they can provide different things. They provide job coaches, and that job coach and that program that they would develop would be tailored specifically for that job that he's working on right now, where what we are doing here is like that, is the general piece.
Yes, so there's more exposure to different jobs and skills where DVR is going to be more specific to a specific job.
And also, while they're in the TAPS program, when
It's like a vocational.
towards the, there's vocational programs post-21 that you apply to, right? So we're that first piece, and towards the end of their time in that TAPS program, we begin to hook the parents up with those outside programs, get them signed up. It's a process. Everything post-high school, whether you're 18 or post-21, it's a large process, and we're here to help you kind of navigate that. Because once you're out, these are the programs that you have. So when you get out, what is the one post-21?
What are you specific?
Post-20, so you work,
So as far as
job coach,
DVRS?
is DVRS?
Well, DVRS is just specifically to get you independently employed. So what she spoke about mostly today, this pre-ETS, it's pre-employment transition services, they won't duplicate if we're doing work-based learning. But if the numbers are great here, so they will outsource for individual job counseling and career counseling. And there are a number of students right now doing that. This is relatively new. The pre-ETS is funded by the Department of Labor. It's not even 5 years old. When I first started, it was only an adult service. So it is a really good way. There are a lot of students also that don't necessarily want to, like senior option, you can go out and job sample or work, do some type of internship here. There are a lot of students that want to stay at school. It's their last year and they want to be in classes, all 8 classes. And so then the pre-ETS program really works for them because right after school, I have a student right now, he wanted to do it in person. He meets someone, a vocational counselor at the municipal library right across the street after school when he meets with them. And it's, in-person counseling. He didn't want to do Zoom. That was an option as well. But he wanted to meet with someone and talk to them in real time. So this is a student that is a senior in 8 classes, 4 each day, but wants to go to work, but wasn't ready. So he's just exploring a lot of different possibilities.
And how are we connecting the dots between the information that's being culled by Mrs. Friedman to what's being done through the TAPS program? Like how, there seems to be a link missing.
Within the TAPS program?
Well, because
So when
not every student is obviously geared toward the same career path.
Right.
And yet in TAPS it seems.
But within the TAPS program, like I was saying, so
They
towards
go
the
to
end of the
multiple
TAPS program,
sites.
that's when that's when we go to the state and we'll go to these are the places that we go to, and then we connect you, the parent, with them, help you fill out the paperwork, help you get signed up, give you the direction of which way to go, start those conversations with those outside organizations. We help you do that. That's where we are.
That's after we graduate.
Yeah, within that 18 to 21-year-old.
And not everyone needs every support. It's dependent on the child. The other part of the 18 to 21-year-old program, it's not all work-based learning. The skill building, there are skills that they're learning while they're at school, and they learn to generalize them in the community, and that's called community-based instruction. Just like we go into community, we don't have to think about when we have to shop, or we go to a restaurant and we have to tip. So every now and then, they go out for a meal, and they have to order on their own, and if they're nonverbal, they're using their Proloquo on their iPad, they have to pay on their own, and we've done, banking, all different options. It really depends on the needs of the child and what they're learning, and then they generalize that in the community. And that is not work-based learning, it's just really life skills in the community that have been learned in the classroom.
I think it was right after COVID started, we had a Zoom meeting about TAPS, and there was some program we were using where they were being surveyed, I guess, the students and whoever their instructors were and parents. I don't remember the name of it, but it was new that you guys were going to start to use to see what career path, and we use, I think Mrs. Belko actually is the example of, if Mike wants to be a pilot, but is afraid of heights, nurse or whatever, and is afraid of heights, that's all great, that's her interest. What was that called, and are we using that?
I don't, to be honest with you, I don't remember what it's called, but what we are using is the other functional assessment. I'm not sure if they are still using that.
It's like a website.
Right, yeah, it was like a Naviance type of website. And I think that was more of the introduction through the COVID piece where the AFOLS is the main piece in which we're looking for to get that functional piece. Those were good, and they're, and they'll give you a direction. I know we're kind of, and you get, it gives you like a job and some videos after you get it.
You had explained that it was kind of reality to their skill set
It was.
versus their interests versus
100%.
everybody's input about what they need to have strengths and weaknesses.
Yes, it was, and I'm not sure how much they use that because it's not as effective as the real life piece of the functional living assessment.
Okay.
That is what really drives a lot of what it is they do.
Right, but I think Ms. Friedman used the veterinarian example, right? So if I really like animals, I say I want to be a vet, but I think this, I don't know if it was an assessment or a website, kind of was like, okay, well, you can't be a vet for X, Y, and he didn't say that, but like that. But these are some of the things, like the
So those are
those
things that they use within the TAPS. Those are things that they do use within the TAPS program. Those videos and those pieces, but it only goes so far and it only goes so deep.
Okay.
So those are supplements. I know what you're talking about. So that's not something that drives. That's not going to drive so much where they're going as much as when we're looking at their tasks and the functional living skills that they have. So that is a piece where you're going to supplement that in. So if you're interested in whatever it is you're interested, that's just one other piece that we're going to utilize to work with your instruction with.
And I'm coming from the point that we want them motivated, because we all know
Well, we
if
can
you
get,
go to work
so those are
and
things that we
something you
need.
hate every day.
Right, we
probably not
use that, but it
gonna-
doesn't drive, it's a supplement, and it's
Okay.
not driven. And I can't remember that whole conversation, but I'm assuming when you're saying COVID, that might have been a COVID piece where maybe that was something that we were going to use to drive it because we weren't in school, and this was the best way to there was a few different things that we used during COVID with the TAPS program that we don't use anymore because in real life it's not effective.
They learn by
But that was the
doing,
best way that we could
they
do
need
it
it in
during
real
COVID.
time.
But those are good supplements, and those are still things that we have, like the virtual reality thing, the goggles that we had and we utilize, but those are supplements to the needs of which they are. But I can't remember the name of that program.
It was really good, because I remember looking
I
at
want
the
to say it's like,
website.
they wanted to teach now is what keeps coming up, but it wasn't teach now.
No, it was career something. Oh.
You have any more questions? No.
Well, obviously, do I have to go up front, of course, or can they get me from here? Do I have to go up front, or they can get me from here? Good, all right. So, let me just look at the next one. So, I'm sorry, give me 1 second. So, first off, thank you for coming. I just want to check, we have our next presentation is going to be on behavioral interventions, and that will be on December 15th. So it'll be the same location, December 15th. It'll also be streamed for those who can't attend, but it'll be on behavioral interventions, and it'll be presented by our district BCBAs. But otherwise, as Ms. Friedman said, these documents will be posted on the website sometime tomorrow. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.